Hello, everyone, and Merry Christmas to Orthodox Christians that celebrate this day today on 7th of January, which is a majority of the Orthodox Christians, of course, although there are some exceptions. So, Merry Christmas. Wish you all the best, all the best, and Happy New Year again, dear friends. Maybe you don't know, but we Orthodox Christians actually celebrate New Year too on 14th of January. So we're gonna have one more New Year celebration. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody. Today is of course 7th of January. Now it's 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments on this for this news segment for this live stream, and hopefully you will find program you will find this show interesting, informative, and useful. And in that case, please like the video, click that like button, leave some commentary, share link to this live stream to anyone basically that might have some interest in the news, especially from pro-Russian take, right? Share it right now if you can, will be very helpful, of course. Also, of course, after the new segment, if there are going to be any questions, by the way, through Super Chat feature on Rumble or Boosty or PayPal, of course, I will react on that for sure. And okay, that's it for intro. Let's go through some news. And as I said, quite a lot is happening, by the way. Some stuff that is clearly indicating that soon we're going to witness some next level of escalation, and not just in regards to this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, but also elsewhere too, in the Middle East, for example. Something is being cooked by the Western ruling class in regards to a Middle Eastern region, in regards to Iran, in terms of provoking regional war there. And they have a green light now because they just established control basically over Venezuela, right? Which will help them in some sense to minimize their possible impact on their negative impact on the Western economies once they will provoke regional war in the Middle East and provoke navigation in a Persian Gulf to be shut down. But let's go through news one by one. And well, as you know, yesterday there was a meeting of a coalition of willing in France, in Paris. Although it was not just coalition of willing countries that were participating, but the US sent its delegation led by Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, also son-in-law of Trump, Jared Kushner. Zelensky was there, a number of other criminals, right? And well, France and UK, by the way, signed agreement with the Kyiv regime on intent to deploy their troops after ceasefire will be reached in the region. For whatever reason, by the way, seems like Western ruling class is quite confident that they're gonna force Russia's hands or hands of Russian leadership to agree on the temporary measures, right? Because they are non-stop pushing this freaking narrative that they're gonna deploy troops, right? And already talk is about some 30,000 troops that France and the UK gonna deploy. Turkey gonna secure Black Sea for them and that kind of stuff. Let's see what is going to happen at this point. Such crazy stuff is happening in this world that it is difficult to say that this is completely impossible now, right? Anything is possible in this world, although we might have some doubts, right? Moscow's position have not changed. Any NATO troops on the Kyiv-controlled territory will be seen as a legit target. That was an official, and still is, I believe, official stand of Russian government. Nevertheless, RIA Novosti is also reporting that US made some major announcement about their peace agreement in regards to this proxy war that they are waging against Russia. A peace agreement to end the Ukrainian conflict is almost ready. US permanent representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, said on the Fox news. We have quote here. We've truly come a long way. This is a remarkable development, and we could be on the threshold of a peace agreement. While we continue to pray for peace, we are also making every effort to ensure that the peace remains, he said. And I mean, you tell me, dear friends, if you have any clue what the hell is going on here, because last time I checked, Russia was not involved in this negotiations, so-called negotiations that U.S. And European NATO member states were engaged. So we are not there, right? Russia is not there. From that so-called 20-point peace plan that initially used to be 28-point peace plan, then it became 27, then it became 20. That recently was introduced to the public by Zelensky himself, right? And in that 20-point peace plan, through which I went during one of my live streams, there was only a couple of points, right, which Moscow can consider for discussion. The rest is non-starters, total non-starters, right? So it is anybody's guess, by the way, what Matthew Whitaker is talking about, or what any other representative of the Western ruling class is talking about when they say anything at all, either about the escalation or the peace or the ceasefire or the anything at all, right? We are not there. We are not a part of discussion. So what difference does it make on which points Western ruling class has agreed on? I mean, who cares, right? But anyways, they're not being challenged, isn't it? There are no questions that are asked in the Western world. No one is asking either Whitaker or US president or the presidents or the leaders of the European countries, what difference does it make on what you agree? Because Russia is not part of this discussion. Russia is not present there, right? What's going on here? Anyways, by the way, they are acting as if Russian opinion does not matter, and I think they're going to regret this attitude, this approach quite soon. But anyways, we also have a report from Bloomberg that US is ready to provide Ukraine with 15-year security guarantees. United States may provide Ukraine with the commitments to support it in the event of a new war, escalation with Russia, including participation in European military initiatives, news agency reports, and if true, by the way, there are a number of other reports according to which, for example, US refused to participate, right, in providing any guarantees for Kiev regime. But there are also reports like this one from Bloomberg that US agree on 15-year guarantees. And in any case, if true, if Western ruling class, if globalists somehow manage to force hands of Russian leadership to agree on the temporary measures on a ceasefire, for example, then once they will reorganize their proxies in the Kiev regime, their forces, right, the armed forces, once they will bring in as much weapons and mercenaries from all around the world as they possibly can, right, once they will be ready for next round of this proxy war, nothing will stop them to provoke the confrontation again, isn't it? It only takes one false flag operation and that's it, right? There is a confrontation again, hostilities again, and at that point, Western ruling class might demand from US, you are signatory to this agreement, right? So honor it now, send your troops and fight Russia. That's what is going on, man. This is set up. This is clearly set up, by the way. And let's be real here. If European NATO member states will provoke an open, direct war with Russia, it's going to be terrible war, obviously, but eventually we will exterminate them, right? Russia can beat Europe like 10 times over, right? Europe is not a force to be reckoned with. It's just freaking paper tigers, right? All of them. We can eliminate European armies much faster than, Kiev regime's forces, for example, because Kiev regime's forces are Russians, by the way, and the Russians know how to fight. But Europeans, I mean, Europeans really, if they know anything nowadays, it's I don't know how to whine about what kind of gender they are, right? That's their thing, right? Research what kind of gender they are and how many genders are there, like 100, 200, 500, or whatever. That's their stitch, right? But when it comes to fighting, real fighting, by the way, yeah, we will obliterate them, right? But if US is engaged, that's a whole different story, because in that case, world will rapidly spiral into nuclear exchange, then full nuclear exchange, and that's the extinction level event. Then we will just all die. That's it. So this is set up, by the way, and I don't understand why there is no protests in the US in regards to this topic. Don't they understand what's going on here and what is the plan of the globalists? Because globalists do know perfectly well. We will fucking kill them all, man, right? In open war. We will eliminate European armies. It's going to be bloody war, by the way, no doubts about it. It's not going to be easy, but we can take care of them. If US is engaged, then that's a different story, because in that case, war will go nuclear, 100%, right? Full-scale nuclear. So I don't know. I don't get it. Why American society is this passive and pays no attention to these developments whatsoever. It seems like, right? I'm monitoring Western so-called media, American so-called media. I'm monitoring so-called alternative media too, Western one, and it's a so-called because developments in Venezuela clearly demonstrated that those so-called alternative media resources are freaking neocons, man. It's just addition. That's just addition to their MSM, right? Because almost everybody in American alternative media, with a few exceptions, by the way, is fully on board with this criminal terrorist activity that US is engaged, either in Venezuela or in regards to any other direction, right? So, we should be careful when we choose our sources, by the way. With the exception of maybe a couple of channels from the West, none of them can be trusted, man. None of them, literally. But anyways, let's see how things gonna go. Bloomberg is saying US agrees on 15-year guarantees. Some sources say that US is not really on a border, but we will find out. For example, this report that US did not sign the declaration on the security guarantees for Ukraine yesterday, right? According to Politico. So which one is correct, by the way? Either Bloomberg, either Politico, right? But both cannot be correct, right? Because they are saying, like, they are sharing stories that kind of contradict each other. So according to Politico, only the signatories of their coalition of willing are there. In addition, the document omits details of the US participation in multinational forces in Ukraine, which they want to deploy after their conflict ends. So globalists want Americans to be there, American troops to be there, right? But Washington, according to Politico, is not signatory of this agreement. So who knows, man? In any case, if US deploys its troops, it will end very badly, by the way, for everybody, literally for everybody in this world, right? It's gonna be then extinction level event in the making, right? Meanwhile, what is also interesting, dear friends, we have reports, more and more reports, that US has deployed quite a number of aircraft, transport aircrafts, attack aircrafts into UK, right? Also, helicopters that usually are used by US special forces, SEAL teams, Delta forces, and so on, ones that kidnapped Maduro, for example, right? And question is, what the hell is going on? What this deployment is all about? And well, I do have some ideas about it, but let's go first through this news. United States has deployed 14 C-17 Globemaster transport aircraft to heavily armed and the two heavily armed AC-130J Ghost Rider attack planes, right, to airbase in United Kingdom. All through the British Ministry of Defense declined to comment, according to Times newspaper. And according to this very same propaganda outlet of the West, the Globemaster could have had at least five MH-60M Black Hawk helicopters on board and one MH-47G Chinook, which are used in special operations usually that the US conducts. And the question is now, what is going on, right? I do have a few ideas about this deployment. Probably it's not just military equipment, but also, by the way, special forces units that being deployed too. You know what AC-130 is, isn't it? This is basically this turbopump plane that is armed to the teeth, by the way, with all sorts of weapons, cannons, missiles, even howitzer, 105 millimeter howitzer is on board. You have all seen that plane, isn't it? I'm quite sure about it. So what's going on? Question is right, and I have a couple of explanation. Maybe U.S. leadership is so psycho, so crazy that maybe they think they're gonna pull off something like they did in Venezuela, here in Russia. I don't know. This is even. It sounds too crazy, right? It sounds too crazy, too insane. But I guess Western ruling class already proved there many times over that they are just that crazy, you know. So maybe all the chances that they're gonna go against Russian leadership is probably only theoretical. Like I don't know, man. I don't think they will dare, but who knows? Another reason why these special forces and their equipment was deployed to UK could be that for 17 days now, by the way, US militaries, coast guards, and the militaries are chasing vessel under the Russian flag, Marinera vessel, right? For 17 days. And this vessel, according to reports that I see, is already somewhere in around Iceland, right? And the vessel is moving towards the Murmansk, Russian port. And maybe US wants to demonstrate force against Russia, right? And maybe they will take on that tanker, Marinera, or Marinera, whatever the name is, right? Maybe that's the reasoning of deployment of these special forces into UK. Could be the case. Could be the case. Maybe they're gonna attack this vessel. By the way, that is under Russian flag, and Russian Foreign Ministry already issued a statement about it that Moscow is monitoring the situation and is concerned that there is a chase of this vessel that is happening, right? 4,000 kilometers away from the US coast. So could be that. Or if I mean, we are living in such a crazy times, by the way, that who knows, maybe US will kidnap Zelensky. Is it a possibility, by the way? What do you think? Maybe US will just go into Kiev control territory to take Zelensky and a couple of his bodies there, right? Theoretically, that's the possibility also. Theoretically, although very little chance for that, I think, but it's a theoretically possibility. And another one is Iran, of course. Iran, by the way. If we see any reports that these planes from UK have been deployed towards Azerbaijan in Southern Caucasus or Armenia, by the way, somewhere in the Middle East, even, then that will be a strong indicator that the US plans to conduct decapitation strike on Iran. Probably, right? So let's monitor the situation. But definitely, after what happened with Maduro, of course, media and public is paying much bigger attention to deployment of U.S. special forces in different parts of the world. Understandably so. We will find out anyways, right? What's going on there. Meanwhile, I just mentioned the situation with Venezuela, isn't it? And already Marco Rubio, by the way, U.S. Secretary of State, mocked the UN and said publicly that Washington is not interested about a position that UN might come up with. Marco Rubio said that UN has no freaking idea about anything, basically. So, therefore, no one should be surprised that US permanent representative to the US, to the UN, Michael Waltz, also went to mock UN, right? And I can give you a short clip on that difference, and you be the judge what you will make of it. You know,
End of the day, this was the right thing to do. President Trump took bold action and will continue to swing and doge that ridiculous organization called the United Nations.
so that's it. Do we have to add anything? Do we have to comment this stuff? I don't think so, right? UN is a dead body, by the way, dead so-called international organization. No one respects UN, and for a reason, for a good reason, right? Because UN was unable to stop Western aggression anywhere, right? Yugoslavia was attacked, Libya was attacked, Iraq was attacked, I mean, you just name it, man. Dozens of countries being attacked by Western collective West, and UN was unable to prevent it, right, or to deter this aggression from the West. So, understandably, no one has any respect for this so-called international body no more, and well, Western ruling class is mocking it openly now. I guess at some point, because UN is a creation of a post Second World War era, right? And the world order that still exists partially is also a creation of the Second World War era. Things have changed in the world, right? There are different powers. Some are rising, some are failing, and there is no longer Soviet Union in existence, right? And the world is clearly failing towards the next big event, right? Next global crisis, after which probably we will see new world order being shaped, which most likely would not be based on so-called international law, but most likely will be based on zones of or areas of influence of several major powers in this world, right? US being one, China, obviously, Russia in some sense. Although Russia never had demonstrated any interest to be like dominant force in this world, but nevertheless, Russia is a superpower, nuclear superpower. So obviously, Russia will have certain zone of influence in immediate neighborhood. By the way, that's all, right? Russia, for its own security, needs security and stability to be concrete in immediate neighborhood. The rest of the world is, of course, Russia's concern, but partially, right? Because yet again, Russia is not pretending to be world policeman, never did, unlike US, by the way. And when it comes to China, China is also clearly, due to its economical power and rising political power, is becoming a sort of dominant force in this world, right? So US and China can compete on that. Flagging rookie, we are not playing no games in this regard, right? So yes, we as a humanity clearly heading towards another major crisis, global crisis, after which probably new world order will be shaped, and therefore we should expect more and more humiliation of existing international, so-called international organizations, including UN, by the way, which is it's a joke, right, at this point. TASS News Agency is also reporting based on Reuters' initial information that U.S. threatened Venezuela's interior minister with assassination or the kidnapping, which is interesting, isn't it? They just kidnapped Maduro, but yeah, they have a good appetite in Pentagon, in Washington. They love this movie type of uh, stuff, right? And maybe they want to repeat something like that. It's a good distraction, isn't it? This kind of stuff is a good distraction that takes attention of American public for from actual relevant stuff towards some faking nonsense, right? And like Epstein files, for example, or economical decline in the U.S., right? Record level of unemployment, high inflation, and all the other stuff, right? That Americans probably actually care much more than Venezuela or what kind of government Venezuela has or any other country in this world. But nevertheless, it is interesting that Washington is already threatening its own puppets, by the way, in Venezuela, right? Um, so the Washington administration is threatening to assassinate or the kidnap Diosdado Cabello, Venezuela's vice president for civil security and minister of interior, justice and peace. Reuters reported this Tuesday. According to Reuters sources, U.S. authorities warned Cabello that he could be at the top of the target list if he does not help acting Venezuelan President Delcy Rodriguez comply with U.S. demands and maintain order. According to Reuters reporter, the Washington administration believes Cabello remains loyal to the U.S. abducted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. hopes to force him to cooperate during the transition period and ultimately remove him from power and send him into exile. According to agency, the American side informed Cabello through intermediaries that if he persists, he could face the same fate as Maduro, or his life could be in danger. At the same time, the publication notes that the American side fears that Cabello's assassination could lead to chaos in Venezuela. So you see, there is already a power struggle, by the way, right? These are puppets. These all are puppets, by the way, of America, CIA, obviously, right? I think there was a massive betrayal of Venezuelan people committed by Maduro himself and his government officials, right? All of them, by the way. If anybody there in Maduro's cabinet had a dignity, decency, they will resign. If they were not in this business of betraying people of Venezuela, they would resign, right? As a step of protest, right? Demonstration of the protest and disagreement with what had happened. And I'm quite sure, by the way, Maduro and his government, that they are part of this show from the beginning. I think China is also involved big time. There was a trade-off between US and China, in my personal opinion, right? And yes, now there is a power struggle. Now there is a power struggle inside this so-called government of Venezuela and among CIA freaking puppets, CIA active. And well, all Washington can do now is to threaten them, right? And yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Maybe for now, through propaganda means through oppression, through lies, this so-called government of Venezuela is managing to maintain visibility of the order in the country. But I think it's only a matter of time before people of Venezuela, especially, you know, ideologically leftist individuals that have some principles, right? Well, those people will soon realize that Venezuela was betrayed by its own government, by its own so-called elites, right? And those people gonna start armed resistance. I have no doubts about it. By the way, U.S. can do whatever they want with these assets of the CIA that call themselves government of Venezuela, but People is a different, right? People will soon realize, significant part of it, that they've been betrayed by these so-called elites, and they're gonna start on resistance. Inevitable, absolutely inevitable, by the way, right? And nothing US can do about it. They illustrated this corrupt regime in Venezuela, right? And these corrupt officials, they illustrated them in a way that no one else could probably, right? And people in Venezuela know now that these so-called elites are freaking scum of humanity, right? And they're gonna rebel, especially especially ones that actually believe in their leftist ideology, actually believed in the freedoms and the liberties, right, for Venezuela and people of Venezuela, and actually believe that riches of the Venezuela belongs to people, not to US or any other country, right? So armed resistance, rebellion is absolutely inevitable, and I think some of the members of this CIA government of Venezuela know this, and they might even try to switch the sides again because you know they will count what is going to be more profitable for them, right? And they might actually switch sides, try at least, including this one, so-called interior minister. Although, who's gonna trust them, man? I don't think they will ever be able to regain trust. Anyways, that's the report from Reuters that Washington is already threatening these officials in Venezuela, their own puppets, right, to obey orders. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, reports that U.S. is demanding that Venezuela abandon cooperation with Russia and number of other countries. What a surprise! United States is demanding that the new Venezuelan government abandon cooperation with Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. ABC reports, citing sources familiar with the White House position. And you know what? When it comes to Russia, by the way, I mean, trade between the two countries is like peanuts, right? It's about like $400-500 million, sir. It's nothing, right? Very little trade. China, on the other hand, is a different story. China was, I believe, main trading partner for Venezuela, as China is a main trading partner for majority of the countries in this world, right? And for Venezuela, it's going to be a little more difficult to cut off ties with China, a little more difficult than in comparison to cutting ties with Russia. But they will do it. Obviously, eventually they will do it because they are CIA puppets. So they will do whatever they've been told by their masters, right? So therefore, soon, I guess relationships between Caracas and Moscow, Caracas and Beijing, Caracas and Havana, Tehran, gonna deteriorate tremendously. Something to be expected, for sure, right? And also, by the way, when it comes to this craziness of Washington, Trump, U.S. president, went on his Truth Social to blackmail Venezuela once again, and he said that Venezuela have to provide U.S. 30 and 50 million barrels of high quality oil, or else. Right? He is threatening. I mean, you give us all your oil, or we will fucking kill you all. That's what basically American attitude is now, isn't it? So let me read what Trump said, by the way. I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America, to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela, yeah, of course, and the United States. I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unload docks in United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Trump said. And I guess this number, even though he didn't specify, I guess 30 to 50 million barrels are monthly demand, right? Monthly demand from Washington. I don't think Venezuela can actually produce more, you know. Production of oil, even though Venezuela is the richest country in this world when it comes to discovered oil reserves, pumping capabilities of Venezuela is relatively low, right? And I'm not sure they can actually produce more than 50 million barrels a month. So everything they produce will go to US. Seems like, right? Uh, and will benefit American corporations. Trump's family will get some piece of this pie, obviously. Trump's family is openly engaged in all sorts of corruption, right? Trump himself is saying that, you know, bragging about how successful his family is. And it is true, by the way. Their wealth is growing unbelievably, right? Unbelievably, man. Anyways, that's where we are. US gonna take all oil that Venezuela can produce, all of it, right? And enrich its energy corporations, right? And its corrupt political class, Trump and his family members and whoever is involved. By the way, it's so disgusting, isn't it? What is going on is so freaking disgusting, really, that I don't even want to talk about it. It's just too much of a filth, by the way, that is happening in this world, right? And mainly because of the Western ruling class, because Western ruling class is a filth, correct? It's an evil force that has to be neutralized, but there is no one out there to neutralize them. So, additional reason for people of Venezuela to wake up and start armed resistance, because their country is no longer run by Venezuelan patriots, as it was, I believe, during the Chavez era. Now Venezuela is run by CIA assets, and I don't think people of Venezuela really appreciate that. They will take up arms and start armed resistance. Only matter of time, by the way. Meanwhile, according to Wall Street Journal, Russia has deployed a submarine and their other naval units into the North Atlantic to protect the tanker Marinera from possible seizure by US forces. According, yet again, this is coming from Wall Street Journal. The tanker, previously known as Bella One, by the way, I have reported about this tanker, isn't it? From the very first day when the US attempted to board it, hijacked it, and tanker crew refused to obey orders, right? They just continued to sail. And I said straight away that maybe reason why US militaries, Coast Guard and militaries failed to hijack this tanker is that there could be unit of the PMC, some PMC unit there on the board, right? And maybe they said they're going to fight. Maybe crew of their vessel informed American side that there is a armed security on board, and they will offer resistance. And that's why this vessel was successful to avoid hijacking by American terrorists, by at least for now. And there may be, by the way, you see, I already reported like a few minutes earlier about deployment of US special forces into UK, right? And I said that one of the reasons, or one of the targets or tasks of these special forces could be this exactly tanker, which is somewhere around either Britain or Iceland at this point and heading towards the Murmansk Russian port, northern Russian port, right? And could be case, man. Could be case. And if this tanker is now under the protection of Russian submarine and other naval assets, well, I guess it's gonna be quite difficult for U.S. militaries to pull off that trick that they did in Venezuela to attack this tanker and you know hijacked it basically, because these Russian naval vessels probably will not allow this to happen. But yet again, this is Wall Street Journal is reporting, by the way. Can we trust this Western propaganda outlet? I don't know. In Russian media, I have not seen no reports about Navy assets being deployed to secure this particular tanker. So we will find out. We will find out soon, but maybe something extraordinary is about to happen in regards to all this story with Marinera. Maybe. Also, remember yesterday I was reporting about Democrat lawmaker that initiated or want to initiate the impeachment process against Trump. And I said while commenting on that news that it will not happen today. Trump not going to be impeached now. He most likely will be impeached after midterm elections, because there are every indicator is in a place that Democrats going to overrun Republicans, right? Big portion of Republican voters are extremely disenfranchised, extremely angry, and they're disappointed in what they see in terms of policies of the White House, and they're not going to vote. They're not going to go and vote for Democrats, but they will just simply ignore the elections, right? And I guess Trump was briefed about that, right? I guess Trump was briefed about that, and he was giving a speech somewhere yesterday or day before, and he actually said the same, that if Republicans did not win midterms, Trump gonna be impeached. And yes, this is true, by the way. Even if Republicans somehow will win elections, Trump most likely gonna be impeached. But if they lose, and they're gonna lose, by the way, big time, Trump definitely gonna be impeached, and the Republican establishment will be okay with that, because their party is at risk. This two-party system is in risk in the US right now, and the ruling class in America that actually controls both parties and pulls the strings, they know they have to do something about it, right? The system is cracking, and they need to do something to keep control, or to be in a position to still influence public opinion in America, right? To be able to divide the public in these two blocks, the Democrats, Republicans, and to control, basically. So maybe Trump will be impeached anyways, no matter which way those midterms gonna go. But chances that Republicans will have any good results is like next to zero, I guess, right? I have seen different opinions, by the way, about it. Most are agree that Republicans are in a bad shape, and on one of their channels, I can't remember where, I even hear that maybe exactly for midterms, Trump's administration will occupy Greenland, right? And they think this enlargement of the U.S. will help them to mass Republican voters around their Trump and to win midterm elections. But no, man, I don't think this will work if they even thinking about it, because last time I checked, traditionalists, very many at least of traditionalists and conservatives and libertarians in the US that voted for Trump during the elections were against any wars whatsoever, right? Against any wars. They voted for Trump so that Washington will be focused on domestic issues, on domestic stuff. So just because Trump might occupy Greenland right before midterm elections, those people, those disenfranchised, disappointed Republican voters not gonna go to the polling stations and cast the vote. No, not happening. I don't think so. We will see. We will see. But nevertheless, Lewitt, Caroline Lewitt, press spokesman of the Donald Trump, well, went to say publicly that Trump's regime basically is discussing several options for acquiring Greenland. She also reiterated that the use of U.S. Army is always an option available to Commander in Chief. They already have military in Greenland, by the way. I mean, they don't really need to deploy any more forces. They just can go in this couple of settlements that is there, right? Population of Greenland is how many people? Like 50,000 maybe, or not even that. So U.S. military just can go into this couple of settlements there and raise American flag, and that's it, right? They don't even need to deploy additional forces, by the way. So yeah, military option is also there. Although, according to Wall Street Journal, Trump's goal is to buy Greenland, not to seize it by force. And this was said by Rubio to a lawmakers. Yet again, according to Wall Street Journal, the harsh rhetoric, although is allegedly to pressure, is a part of pressure tactic to force Denmark to the negotiating table, not a prelude to invasion. But yet again, Denmark is a quite rich country, by the way, right? Denmark is it used to be at least, right? It's quite a rich country. I don't think there is any reason why, and it's not about Denmark alone. It's about European Union, by the way. It's about European power projection, right? And European elites want to be seen as a global power. So it's not necessarily about Denmark alone. It's about European elites, right? It's about globalists and their power projection. So therefore, I don't think there is a price that globalists can put on Greenland. So US, if American ruling class is serious about acquiring Greenland, eventually they will have to go militarily, because they're not going to be able to buy Greenland, by the way, right? They will not be able to pay for it. Political price for globalists is much higher than anything that US can offer. That's how it is. But anyways, Wall Street Journal is telling us that for now, at least, the US is more focused on buying Greenland instead of occupying militarily. Anyways, there are some other regions, of course, that are hotspots in this world, and Iran is obviously one of these areas. As you know, for last several days, there is unrest that is going on in different cities of Iran, different regions. We already have seen armed groups, armed terrorist groups attacking policemen, attacking government buildings in different parts of the country. And yesterday, at some point, Western propaganda means began reporting that Malek Hashi district was under control of these terrorist groups in Iran, right? Although later on, Tehran rejected these claims. So Iranian news agencies have denied Western media reports that protesters, terrorists basically, what protesters, man? You call protesters creatures that are running with their flamethrowers and their AKs, assault guns? I mean, these are not protesters, these are criminals and terrorists, period. So Iranian news agencies have denied the Western media reports that these terrorists have seized the Malek Hashi district in the country's west. After several tense hours in Malek Hashi and the death of a security officer during the clash with the armed individuals, the situation has now returned to normal thanks to presence of security forces in the district. Tasnim news agency is reporting, and well, this is obviously we have seen before even larger protests in Iran, right? That did not lead to regime change, but this time around, things might go down differently. Yet again, U.S. and Israel already targeted Iran openly, and they might do it again anytime. Anytime, by the way, there is a very strong statement, sir, from Israel, from U.S. In support of internal destabilization in Iran. There are threats, open threats, that they're gonna kill Iranian leadership, they're gonna conduct decapitation strike, and so on. And they might actually do it, literally anytime, today, tomorrow, day after. Who knows? Maybe those special forces units that have been deployed to UK are actually destined to be used against Iran's leadership. Who knows? Could be the case, right? So I don't know, man. Something extremely dangerous is developing in the Middle East. I said many times before that the globalists, neocons, and Zionists, maybe for different reasons, but want to destabilize the Middle East, provoke regional war, right? Regional war on to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf, and cut off global South, China first of all, from Middle Eastern energy sources, to increase Chinese dependence on Russia eventually towards the critical level, and then create tensions between China and Russia, and eventually provoke the military confrontation between the two. That's the final goal, main goal of the strategy of the Western ruling class, right? So yes, clearly, Middle East is tensions are increasing in the Middle East. Recently, we have seen increased tensions between Saudi Arabia and UAE. Saudi Arabia has difficult relationships with Qatar too. Now Iran again, right? So yes, something is going to happen there for sure. Something is going to happen, and Moscow and Washington should not just pay attention to these developments, but I don't know, man. Moscow and Washington should maybe send their troops, naval assets, even troops in the Middle East, in Iran, for example, elsewhere, right? Because it will be massive setback for Moscow and Beijing, for rest of the world actually too, if Western ruling class manages to provoke regional war in the Middle East, to destabilize the entire region, and eventually shut down navigation through Persian Gulf and the Hormuz Strait. Right, it will be massive blow of national security of Russia and China if this will happen. So, hopefully Moscow and Beijing are not just monitoring the situation, but also planning some stuff to prevent descendants of the Middle East into freaking chaos, because it's going to be too freaking dangerous, man, for everybody. China, meanwhile, escalates or retaliates against Japan, by the way. So Chinese Ministry of Commerce has announced a sharp escalation in export control against Japan, imposing a blanket ban on dual-use goods. The move is justified by Beijing as necessary to protect national security and state interests, and to uphold their international non-proliferation commitments. In practical terms, the decision is uncompromising. Exports of dual-use items to Japanese military users are prohibited, as are any supplies intended for a military purpose, or that could strengthen Japanese military capabilities, regardless of any nominally civilian end user. China also warned that any companies or individuals, including those from third countries, attempting to re-export or bypass the ban will face legal consequences under the Chinese law. And yes, relationships between China and Japan are escalating very rapidly, and especially now after Takashi or Takichi, whatever her freaking name is, become a prime minister of Japan. Uh, Things are so bad that Tokyo is already talking about her becoming nuclear armed country, by the way, which is crazy, right? It does makes everybody nervous in the region, even if idea itself is originally generated in the US, exactly to increase tensions in the region, right? To create additional problems for the China. And by the way, I don't think Beijing gonna sit, uh, like ignore these developments, or sit out this situation. Uh, China definitely has quite a few ways to deal with Japan, and well, all this escalation, all these developments might end very badly for Japan, by the way, right? Tokyo should keep in mind that there is North Korea right there, nuclear armed North Korea, that can actually send Japan into not even medieval times, by the way, to prehistorical times, right? Stone Age. North Korea can send Japan to Stone Age. And they might do it, man. They might actually do it. So I don't know, man. I don't know what the hell is wrong with Japanese political class, political elites. Are they really suicidal or something? And I definitely don't understand why Japanese people are this reluctant to do anything about this craziness that the government is demonstrating. I have not seen any reports about like mass protests in Japan due to these statements of officials and the former officials about Japan is becoming a nuclear power, and they think Beijing gonna tolerate this kind of stuff, or North Korea for that matter, or Moscow. No, no, and yet again, there is a North Korea, by the way, that can actually, Moscow and Beijing don't even have to do anything, man. Pyongyang will. North Koreans will just, revenge for everyone, right? That was harmed by Japan, Imperial Japan, by the way, at the time, right? North Korea can revenge for everybody, while sending modern Japan into a freaking Stone Age. And they have capabilities to do so. If anybody thinks that Japanese air defense is going to intercept North Korean nuclear warheads, then, well, I have Everest mountains in my pocket, by the way, including, oh, I have Himalaya mountains in my pocket, including that Everest or Jomolungma mountain itself, and I would sell it happily to that to those people, right, that believe that Japanese air defenses are capable of intercepting North Korean hypersonic nuclear warheads. Anyways, it is something that definitely deserves our attention. This escalation between Japan and regional countries, basically, right, including China. Also, I think it is interesting that Finland received a contract to build icebreakers for the US. The Finnish shipbuilding company Rauma Marine Construction announced that they receive a contract. They have a contract now in a place from the US Coast Guard for the construction of two icebreakers of the Arctic security cutters type, or Arctic patrol ship. The icebreakers will be built at the shipyard in Rauma and put into operation in 2028. Well, I don't know about 2028. Maybe this company already has like pre-builder uh, vessels, and maybe they're gonna just finalize their construction and sell it, because icebreakers are quite complex stuff. You're not going to be able to build it in like a couple of years time, especially from the scratch, right? But in any ways, it is quite noticeable that US country that pretends to be this empire, almighty empire in this world, is unable to build freaking icebreakers for itself, right? And asking tiny Finland to help with that, you know, quite stuff there. And yet again, this is just a relatively small icebreakers, by the way. To be Arctic power and have a say in northern maritime route that is destined to become a major trade route for this world, by the way. Absolutely, you need to have much more powerful icebreakers than some patrol fitting boats, right? You need to have nuclear icebreakers. And in this world, there is only one country that actually operates with a fleet, not just one or two or five, by the way, with a freaking fleet of nuclear icebreakers, right? And soon, next generation of nuclear icebreakers gonna enter the service. And this country is Russia, of course. This country is Russia. Russia is a major player in Arctic, right? That actually has infrastructure in place to operate, to actually not just talk about Northern Sea Route, but actually build it, operate it. And that's what Russia is doing, by the way. Last year, if I remember correctly, already 60 million tons of goods were transferred through Russian Northern Sea Route, right? And this number will only continue to increase, I think. Anyways, yeah, something interesting, right? That yeah, US is unable to build icebreakers and and purchasing them too in Finland. Also, by the way, interesting news here that American companies join forces to buy Lukoil's foreign assets. So, U.S. Chevron and the Quantum Energy partners have joined the forces to purchase Lukoil assets. Financial Times reported, and we have a quote here. Chevron and their private investment group, Quantum Energy Partners, have joined the forces to acquire the international assets of the Russian oil company Lukoil, which is under sanctions. If the deal goes through, Chevron and Quantum plan to split their assets, which Lukoil estimates to be worth $22 billion in newspaper rights, citing sources. And well, if Lukoil estimates that its foreign assets worth $22 billion, well, I'm afraid that they're gonna sell these assets for, in best case scenario, like for 10 billion, maybe half of the price, maybe even less. And they're all because of these illegal U.S. sanctions, by the way. And this is a lesson. This is the lesson, by the way. Do not invest into Western. First of all, do not invest outside of Russia, right? Be focused on Russia. That's the first lesson for Russian businesses, right? Second lesson, do not invest in countries that can be influenced by the West. Just don't invest there. Do not invest single penny into Western economies, into Western jurisdiction, and do not invest single penny into countries that can be overrun or influenced by the Western ruling class, because you're gonna lose your investments. And Lukoil will learn it now hard way, right? They should never invest anywhere outside of Russia, never. But they were stupid. They have a stupid leadership, obviously, right? Don't tell me otherwise. They are stupid. If they were clever ones, they would not be in this situation, right? To begin with. So they are freaking stupid, and they're gonna learn hard way. And it's not just Lukoil, by the way. Rosneft is run by also freaking idiots, and many other Russian companies, big companies, by the way, are run by fucking idiots, man. Right? And only reason those people are in charge of those companies because they are close to Kremlin. Let's be real on that too, right? So if you think corruption is something that is happening only in the West or somewhere else, no. Here in Russia we have a massive issue of corruption, by the way, And most of the Russian big companies, their leadership is corrupt as fucking hell, man. 100%. I have no doubts about it, right? They should be in a fucking jail, man. I think, right? All of them, man. All these oligarchs, man, and all these prostitutes, right? That robbed the Russian people and robbed the Soviet people. They should be in jail, man. All of them. There should be no mercy for these creatures. RT, meanwhile, is reporting that Gazprom warns of unusually rapid depletion of EU gas storages. So the EU could face gas shortages as a storage level failed below 60%. Russian energy giant Gazprom has warned. And I wonder if Gazprom has, of course it has, man. Gazprom is also fucking investing outside of Russia, isn't it? Big time. These traitors, man. And they're gonna lose also. They're gonna lose also, man. Billions, right? Billions that could go to develop Russian economy. You know, am I have a point here? These bastards, man, from Lukoil or Rosneft or Gazprom or any other major, man, in any field, all those companies that invested outside of Russia, they should be leadership of this company should be penalized, man. Right? Should be, man. They, Blin, and they call Russia dictatorship, man. No, man. If Russia was led by dictator, especially one that hates corruption and corrupt elements, then everybody that is in charge of these companies probably will be in a taiga somewhere, sent for a life to warm up their air, right? Because that's what they deserve, I think. Anyways, by the way, statistics nevertheless are quite interesting that Gazprom is sharing here. As of January 4th, European underground gas storage facilities were 59.9% full, a level recorded only at the end of January last winter, Gazprom said in a Telegram post on Tuesday, citing calculations based on a gas infrastructure Europe data. It showed that the current reserves are about 13% below 5-year norm for early January. And this sharpest decline have been recorded in major hubs such as Germany and the Netherlands, the EU's first and the third largest consumers by storage capacity. Dutch storage levels have dropped to 46.1, while German facilities are only 54.1% full. Gazprom noted that since the start of the heating season, 23.6 billion cubic meters of gas, nearly half of the volume injected ahead of the winter, has already been withdrawn from the EU storage sites. And well, if winter January just begun, right? Then who knows? Maybe not this year necessarily, but next year, Europe might actually face major energy shortages, right? Major gas shortages. Maybe this year, these reserves and additional purchases will help European economies to deal with the winter time. And but I don't think they will manage to full up the storage facilities for next winter season. First of all, because it takes time. It takes time before you purchase, before you bring this LNG, right? Before you transport this LNG towards this underground storage facilities. It takes all time, right? It's not a matter of money or the gas itself, but logistics do take time. So Europeans might face some significant difficulties. Not necessarily this year in terms of energy supplies, but next year probably yes. And then situation will only get worse for Europe. I think. Let's see. Let's see. But anyways, by the way, these corporations, man, these corporations in Russia or outside of Russia, they are all the same, isn't it? They don't care about their own countries, man. All they care is profits and God knows what else, right? And eventually, these massive companies are becoming reliability of the countries. And prime example of that was these numerous stories in America, for example, when government was actually saving the companies from bankruptcy. You know, taxpayers' money in tens of billions of dollars, by the way, in hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, massive amount, right? Taxpayers' money were used to bail out these freaking private companies, right? That were on the edge of bankruptcy because of their stupid policies, right? Anyways, this is it for a news segment, dear friends. This is it for a news segment. Hopefully, you did find it informative and useful. Let me check. Let me check Rumble if there was any super chat there. Just a sec. Oh, on Rumble, there is not even a single comment, by the way, in the chat. Only 12 people are watching on Rumble. Wow. I guess my channel is in shadow ban on Rumble, even in bigger terms than in on YouTube. And I can understand why, by the way. I learned relatively recently that this John Bongino, or whatever the freaking name of that criminal, that used to be deputy of the Kesh Patel in FBI and left the position just recently, that Bongino allegedly is a massive shareholder in Rumble. So obviously Rumble will censor all the channels, by the way, all the channels that might mention certain topics that Western ruling class is in no favor of, as YouTube does, by the way, right? As YouTube does. Okay. Okay, by the way. Okay, this is it then, dear friends. If there was there any message or support donation through PayPal or Boosty, Anna would tell me. So there is nothing there. And anyways, if you want to support my work, of course you can use this links under the video in description box to donate, and you can subscribe to my Patreon and Boosty pages. By the way, I will have a new episode of Behind the Scenes today. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. I did not have the episode yesterday, but today I will. So some extra for our Patreon and Boosty communities. So yeah, this is it for now. If you want to support, you can do it through several means. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And subscribe to my Patreon. I mean, that would be a great support too. Bye for now, dear friends. Take care.